Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Victoria Lee? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the incident, then offer my analysis. This case takes place in July 2024 and involves a 25-year-old woman named Victoria Lee. She lived in the Pinnacle apartment complex on Main Street in Fort Lee, New Jersey, about 1,500 feet from the George Washington Bridge. In 2017, Victoria was diagnosed with bipolar II disorder. This disorder is characterized by major depressive and hypomanic episodes. The disorder is considered to be less severe than bipolar I disorder, which features major depressive and manic episodes. About 22% of people with bipolar II disorder will experience at least one psychotic episode in their lifetime. Now moving to the timeline of the incident. On July 28, 2024, at about 1:13 a.m., Victoria Lee's brother called 911 and said his sister was having a mental health crisis. It was later revealed that Victoria had been rolling on a bed and shouting, although this is not mentioned in the 911 call. The operator told Victoria's brother that police officers and an ambulance would be sent to the apartment complex. Victoria's brother did not appear to be satisfied with this response. He told the operator that just the ambulance would be fine. The operator advised him that police officers responded to mental health calls for the safety of ambulance personnel. Victoria's brother called 911 for a second time and attempted to cancel his first call. The operator explained to him that it doesn't work that way. The police were going to arrive momentarily. When the operator asked why he wanted the call to be canceled, Victoria's brother mentioned that Victoria had a knife. He stated that she was just holding it in the bedroom and described the knife as foldable. At about 1:26 a.m., a Fort Lee police officer named Tony Pickens arrived at the apartment. Victoria's brother exited the apartment into the hallway, and the officer made contact with him. After briefly speaking to Victoria's brother, Tony opened the door to the apartment and saw two women, Victoria and Victoria's mother, who was holding a barking corgi in her arms. Victoria's mother said, "Don't come in." Victoria said, "Close the blanking door," before reaching past her mother and shutting the door. Tony knocked on the door and ordered the women to open it, but they did not comply. At this point, 5 other officers arrived at the scene. Everyone was standing in the hallway outside the apartment door. Speaking through the door, Tony told the women that he would have to break the door in. Victoria can be heard replying, quote, "Go ahead. I'll stab you in the blanking neck. Shoot me if you want to," unquote. Another officer can be heard replying, quote, "We don't want to shoot you. We want to help you," unquote. Victoria responded, quote, "Go home, pig," unquote. While still standing in the hallway, the officers had a discussion about who would be assigned lethal and less lethal duties, like who would be ready with a firearm and who would be ready with a taser. After a few unsuccessful attempts to break the apartment door, Tony finally broke it in. As the door opened, Victoria and her mother could be seen just a few feet behind the door. In Victoria's right hand, she was holding a water jug. It's not clear what she had in her left hand, but her mother appeared to have both of her hands on Victoria's left wrist and forearm. At this point, Victoria moved toward the officers in the hallway as they yelled, "Drop the knife." Tony fired a single shot from his service pistol, striking Victoria in the chest. She immediately dropped to the floor. Victoria Lee was transported to Inglewood Hospital, where she was pronounced dead at 1:58 a.m. The police recovered a folding knife at the scene. Now moving to my analysis. The killing of Victoria Lee has led to a lot of outrage in New Jersey. Community advocates and members of Victoria's family have accused the police of being too aggressive and unnecessarily using lethal force. The family attorney claimed that Victoria had already dropped the knife by the time the officers broke the apartment door in. Community advocates have characterized the behavior of the Fort Lee police officers as sickening, claimed that violence was not required in the situation, and suggested that a mental health professional could have achieved a better result. One advocate said the police delivered a militarized response to a mental health crisis, which is part of a devastating pattern in New Jersey. This brings me to the question, did the police officers in this case, including the officer who killed Victoria, act inappropriately? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that the officers' actions were inappropriate, starting with the factors supporting this theory. The officers did not make a pronounced effort to de-escalate the situation while they were speaking through the apartment door. It appeared as though Tony started to break the door in without the other officers being ready and in position. From the body camera video, it's not clear if Victoria was holding a knife in her left hand or not. In her right hand, she was holding a plastic water jug. Now moving to the factors contradicting the theory that the officers' actions were inappropriate. Victoria's brother indicated that Victoria had a foldable knife. When Tony first tried to enter the apartment, Victoria closed the door. She threatened to stab him in the neck. Being stabbed in the neck is generally regarded as incompatible with continued survival. Victoria's threat made it seem like she was holding a knife, otherwise what would she use to conduct a stabbing? Victoria invited the police to shoot her, which is consistent with her understanding that she was doing something that would necessitate shooting. The officers did not have the luxury of backing away and waiting to see what happened because Victoria was not alone in the apartment. It was reasonable for the officers to believe that Victoria represented a threat to her mother. If the officers had failed to enter the apartment and Victoria killed her mother, people would have accused the officers of being cowardly and nonchalant. When Tony broke the door in, his body camera video captured Victoria and Victoria's mother standing right behind the door. It's not clear from the video, but it looks like Victoria had some type of object in her left hand. In several of these still frames, this object does appear to be consistent with a knife, although it's impossible to make out exactly what the object is. Furthermore, Victoria's mother can be seen grabbing Victoria's left wrist and forearm with both hands. This behavior is consistent with Victoria holding some type of weapon, like her mother was trying to prevent Victoria from using that weapon. Victoria charged toward the officers in an aggressive manner, which could have put them in fear for their lives, mostly because of the stabbing part. After Tony fired a single shot, striking Victoria, a knife could be seen on the floor in two videos captured at the scene, one from a body camera and one from a taser camera. When considering all the available evidence at this point in the investigation, do I think that the officers' actions were inappropriate? No. In my opinion, the officers acted appropriately, and Tony was justified in shooting Victoria. I believe she had a knife in her hand when she charged at the officers, but even if she didn't, it was reasonable to believe that she did based on the evidence available to the officers at that time. Victoria's death was a tragedy, but the officers did not do anything wrong. Sometimes an officer only has a split second to make a life and death decision. Knives are not toys. Many officers have been stabbed to death in the line of duty. If Tony had not fired, Victoria could have stabbed him or the other officers in the hallway. He not only had the right to protect himself, he had a duty to protect those other officers. Tony took on the assignment of being ready with a lethal weapon. He had a responsibility to protect the officers who were holding less lethal weapons. As far as the argument that mental health professionals could have done a better job than the police in this situation, I doubt they could have. Victoria did not appear to be open to a constructive, meaningful, or productive dialogue about her mental health needs. She may have been psychotic, and she appeared to be dangerous based on her threat to stab the police officer. Furthermore, the police did not have the time to wait for a mental health professional to arrive. As I mentioned, the presence of a second individual in the apartment created a sense of urgency. The officers did not want Victoria to harm her mother. The community advocates who have been condemning the actions of the police owe them an apology. It is true that the police don't have a great track record when responding to mental health crises, but this situation was not another example of a police failure. Now moving to my final thoughts. When dealing with a severe mental illness, one of the most important tactics is to be prepared. A safety plan should always be in place when dealing with any disorder associated with psychotic symptoms, including bipolar II disorder. Among other things, this means that there should be no weapons around the individual with the mental disorder. Typically, a major mood disorder does not lead to instant psychosis. It usually takes days or even weeks for a person to move from a relatively normal state to being psychotic. People supporting the person with the disorder often have time to react. They should be on the lookout for the symptoms of psychosis, including maintaining fixed false beliefs, seeing or hearing things that aren't there, paranoia, and disorganized thinking. It's important to react quickly and avoid getting into a situation where some type of urgent response is required. When supporting a person with psychotic symptoms, it's important to think several steps ahead. Those are my thoughts in the case of Victoria Lee. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.